Hi everyone, I'm Battalion Chief Don Nelson, and welcome to another episode of With Summit Fire. I'd like to thank you for viewing our previous episodes. I hope they were exciting and fun. We showed you a little bit of what firefighters do. Hopefully moving forward this year, we'll get a few more episodes in. We'll show you some more of a life of a firefighter at the Summit Fire Department and what we do, how we train, and the equipment we use. This episode today, I'd like to introduce to you our newest piece of apparatus, our brand new Summit Engine 2, 2013 Spartan ERV. And come join me and we're going to show you different parts of the apparatus. As I said earlier, this is our new Summit Engine 2. It's a 2013 Spartan ERV. It has a 1,500 gallon per minute pump. That's kind of hard to imagine what that does, but we'll talk about that when we talk about the pump. It also has a 750 gallon water tank, which is built into the engine, and we'll talk about that when we get over to the pump side. This truck was designed by members of the Summit Fire Department. They formed a committee here. The leader was Battalion Chief Wayne Smith, and he had some help from other firefighters. And they were Clint Evers, Lieutenant Hutkins, Jimmy Pignatello, Gabe Iannella, Brian Harnois, Chris Dorco, Lieutenant Paul Bimbo, Timmy Deutsch, and Lon Mullen. They worked for probably about 12, 15 months. I might be off a little bit, but they worked about that long trying to design this truck. It is a custom-built pumper for the city of Summit. As soon as you put the word on custom, everybody thinks expensive, and we'll talk about that in a little bit too. But it took them about 15, maybe 18 months to design this, going back and forth with the dealer, talking about the chassis design, the cab design, the pump, what kind of ladders do we want on it, what kind of hose are we going to use. All those kinds of things. So it took a long time, but they did a fantastic job. And this new Engine 2 is very similar to our Engine 3, which is on the other side of the building. They're basically the same design. There are some differences due to NFPA standards for safety. As soon as you throw things in for safety, it gets more expensive. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. One of the unique things about this truck is it has a black box. And a lot of you probably heard of black boxes on airplanes. Kind of similar. It'll tell when the emergency lights are on. It'll tell how fast you're going. But one of the unique things about the black box is that it also has a link to the service center that monitors maintenance and things like that. So those are one of the unique things about this piece of apparatus. I'm going to go around and show you different parts of the truck. This side of the truck, the passenger side of the truck, is really not the exciting side, but we'll go around and we'll show you some things on it anyway. So here we are. We're still on the passenger side of our new Engine 2. As I said before, it's not very exciting. When you order a new piece of fire apparatus, it's not like you go down to the showroom and you pick out and go, like I want that one or I want that one. Each piece of apparatus is designed basically for the town that's ordering it. You deal with the factory. You don't deal with a showroom. You do have a salesperson, but he goes all over the county, so he doesn't really have a showroom to show you things. The way we design this truck is we actually go to other fire departments and we see what they have, and we try to incorporate what's some of the best things that the other departments have done and how will they fit into our operations. So the committee did a really great job, but I'm going to show you different parts of the truck. So what we have on this side is really, we have a 4-inch discharge, we have a 5-inch intake. Now, the difference is obviously the diameter. On our old trucks, we used to use 4-inch supply hose. And what supply hose is it's the hose that we hook up to the fire hydrant, and then we would hook up to the intake on either this side or the other side, and we'll talk about the other side in a minute. And that actually supplies us the water to fight the fire. As I said earlier, there are 750 gallons of water inside this truck. if you look at when we look at the hoses on the other side, our 1.75 inch, I know I'm getting technical here, but our 1.75 inch hand line flows about 175 gallons a minute. So do the math. If you have 750 gallons of water in the tank and you don't have a water supply from a fire hydrant, that water is not going to last but maybe 5 minutes or so if you're using the nozzle wide open. So it's important for us to establish a water supply. Now, as long as we're talking about water supply, we're filming this episode now late February, and there's probably 2 or 3 feet of snow around town, and a lot of that's covering our fire hydrants. Firefighters have been out numerous times shoveling fire hydrants, but we need your help to help us get those hydrants clear. If you have a fire hydrant near your house, help us shovel it out. There's roughly over 500 fire hydrants in town. It takes a long time for us to go out and get them done. If the citizens could help us out, that would be great. It would make our job a lot easier, make your neighborhood a lot safer. So if you could do that, thank you very much. So back to the water supply. We lay a 5-inch hose line from the hydrant to the truck. And that's what the water we use to fight the fire. These are some new couplings we had to get. And if you look at these, it's kind of hard to see, but this is a 5-inch. This is 4-inch. We've gone from 4-inch supply hose to 5-inch. And that's something new with this truck. Most of Union County uses 5-inch. I think pretty much every department does. We were one of the few departments that didn't do that, but now we finally switched over to 5-inch. 5-inch gives us more water. You know, it's a larger size hose, so it gives us more water. It helps us a lot when we have difficult fires. It gives us more water to fight the fire with. So moving on, you can see our compartment's empty. We have a couple of rope bags. When I talked about our truck being custom, the manufacturer doesn't throw equipment in there for us. We figure out what equipment we need, and we base that off of our old trucks. We try to keep all of our pumpers the same, so whatever equipment's in this compartment on engine 2 will be the same equipment that's in the same on this compartment on engine 3, and so on, excuse me. As we move to the back, you can see that this is our medical equipment cabinet. Summit Fire Department, we respond as first responders. We supplement the first aid squad. So we keep all of our medical equipment back here. Every engine set up the same way. Our ladder truck has medical equipment on it. Our rescue truck has medical equipment on it. So every piece of apparatus is kind of set up the same way. Up over my head, and you're probably wondering why the ladder is so high. This is our ground ladder, 24 foot, but it's actually on a lift. We can lower it down so the guys can get the ladder off the truck. So those of us that aren't as tall don't have to reach up. It actually comes down to us. And when this truck is finally outfitted completely, we'll have more hose lines here. We'll have high-rise packs, we call them, to help us when we go into high rises. We hook up to the standpipe system, but those are things we'll talk about later on. So as you can see, there's a lot of things that we have to do when this truck comes in. It's not ready to roll right away. We have to make it work for us. And we can move around to the next slide. Okay, here we are around the rear of the truck, the back of the truck. As you can see, by the tools, the guys are still working on mounting things. But this is just another storage compartment. As you can see, we have a saw in there. This is our hydrant makeup kit. And a generator light has a light on the front of it. It's a self-powered light. A backup camera, with a piece of apparatus this big. We put a backup camera so the guys can see when they're backing up. We do have a policy here at the firehouse that you never back up a piece of apparatus unless you have a spotter. However, we all know we never say never, because if you're at an emergency scene and everybody's busy, you got to back up a few feet. Sometimes you got to do what you have to do. As you can see up top here, we have a big opening here, and that's where our supply hose goes. We're in the process of labeling our new 5-inch hose. We just got it in a couple weeks ago. We're in the process of labeling it, cataloging it for maintenance reasons, and to track it for warranty issues. So that hasn't gone on the truck yet. What we have over here are some attack lines. Before I spoke about using the 5-inch hose to supply water to the truck, to the engine. Well, once that water goes into the truck, we use these hoses to fight the fire. We have some more hoses on the driver's side and some more hoses on the passenger side that we use, but we'll talk about those in a little bit. We have some 3-inch hose here that we use as another supply line that we hook up to standpipe connections here in town. So there's a lot that goes on when we go to a fire that people may not see. Most people see us breaking windows, cutting holes in roofs, and stretching hoses into the building. There's a lot that goes on, and we'll talk about that when we talk about the pump. But this is the back of the truck, and we have a unique step down here that guys stand on to help get the hose off. Something funny, these little steps here, believe it or not, there's actually a regulation out there that these steps have to be a certain size because firefighters' boots are kind of big. And if we had small steps with big boots, it wouldn't work too well. So we have to actually have certain size steps so the guys can put their feet on and climb up. You can see we have lights here that we can extend so we can light up a scene. A new unique thing for us is, if you remember, I spoke about the water tank we have on the truck. Well, each one of these different color lights represents how much water is in that tank. When they're all lit up and the green comes on, the tank is full. As more and more water is used, we get different colored lights, and when we're out of water, it turns red. Now, why are these so big? Well, if I'm at a fire, or let's say I'm on the highway and we're fighting a car fire, it makes it easier for the officers to see how much water we have in the apparatus just by looking at the truck instead of getting on the radio and bothering the pump operator saying how much water do we have. It's a visual indication for us as to how much water we have. And it's just one more thing for the officer to keep in mind that, hey, we're running out of water if we're on the highway. I need to get somebody else in here to give us some more water because there aren't hydrants on our highways. So those are some of the things that we have to think about. And if you notice, we don't have the registration yet, but that's coming any day now so we can get this truck on the road. And that's the back of the truck. Okay, here we are around on the driver's side. We're starting in the driver's side rear. As you can see, again, the compartments are empty, but once this truck's in service, we're going to have all kinds of tools. We're going to have a fan for ventilation, some more forcible entry tools, fire extinguishers, all kinds of things in this compartment. So I'm giving you an overview, but not all the equipment's on here. We also carry some foam. One of the things that I didn't talk about was up inside the truck, there's also, I believe it's a 30 or 40 gallon foam tank that we use on car fires or any type of flammable liquid. So we have that capability too. One of the hoses in the back that I showed you is also a foam line. We also have a foam line up front, and I'll show you that one. These are our forcible entry tools. We have them on, I don't know, for lack of a better description, these moving panels. You can see we have different kinds here. Bolt cutters, axes, all kinds of tools that we use when we go to a fire. These are the tools that you'll see us chopping holes in roofs with, but that's what they're here for. Halligan bar helps us force doors and things like that. We have this little kit here. It helps us break through door locks without doing much damage. I've used this once in my entire career here, all 27 years. The one time I did use it, it worked perfectly. No damage to the door at all. So these are just some more compartments with some more tools in them. One unique thing when we talked about the committee designing this truck is they try to use every available inch of the truck to store equipment. We have a couple of these on the other side, but these are our SCBA bottles, our spare bottles. We used to put them up in these compartments, but they took up a lot of space. So the guys were able to get the manufacturer, and it's pretty much common practice now to do this, but they put the SCBA bottles where they're not taking up valuable space. You know, like back here, this is the diesel fill for the truck, but we have this compartment and two more compartments on the other side with SCBA bottles in them. A good use of space. Good job, guys. And we're going to move on to the front of the truck. All right, so here we are. We're about midships of the driver's side. We call this the engineer compartment because the pump operator uses it. They used to be called engine. Some departments call their pump operators engineers. We just call them pump operator. As you can see, there's all different kinds of fittings here, things like that we use for using the pump. We have adapters. We have couplings for other towns. Unfortunately, in Union County, we don't all use the same couplings. We use different style of threads. So we have to have different couplings for every town we go to. Some towns are the same, some towns are different. So we just carry enough couplings to do all that. We have extra nozzles that we put on our deck down up top, and we'll talk about that. This piece of apparatus has a built-in generator. This is the panel box for it. It controls all the lights. We have outlets throughout the truck so we can plug portable lights into it. So it also has a generator on board. Now here we are, the meat and potatoes of this truck. This is called a pumper. The reason why it's called a pumper is there's a pump built into it. And you see all these gauges and all these different colors. Firemen try to keep things simple. Fighting fires is not always simple, but we try to keep as much simple as we can. So if you notice, over here, you see a yellow badge that goes with cross lane number 1. Well, that corresponds to this valve for cross lane number 1. So if a firefighter grabs this hose line and tells the pump operator on the radio, charge the yellow line, he just pulls this lever and that allows water to go to that hose line. Well, let's back up a little bit. If you remember, I spoke about getting this 5-inch hose for the water supply. So if we go to a fire and we have a second due engine that stays at the hydrant, if we decide that we need a water supply, the second due engine is going to lay a supply line from that hydrant to this truck. This truck will be in front of the fire building or a little bit past it, okay? And then that 5-inch will come up. We'll hook the 5-inch up to this. The truck will be in pump, so we can use the pump. The pump operator will open the valve, and that water from the fire hydrant will go right into the pump. We're lucky in Summit that we have a very good water supply system in town, and we have some pretty good pressures, but there are parts in town where the pressure is pretty low. What the pump does is the pump just takes that water from the fire hydrant and increases the pressure so we can put the water out through these hoses. Sounds pretty simple. It is, but there's also a lot of mathematics involved in it, believe it or not. I was one of those guys that was never very good at math in school. I said, I'll never use that. And here, lo and behold, I become a fireman and I need to know math. And you're probably saying to yourself, well, what math do you need to know? Well, as the person that's in charge of a fire, we have a fire flow formula. And what that means is that formula helps me to determine how much water or how many gallons per minute I need to put that fire out. And based on what that formula gives me, that kind of helps me determine whether I need more people on scene. So this is a 1,500 gallon per minute pump. That means the maximum it'll put out is 1,500 gallons per minute. Now think of that as, and I try to explain this to little kids when they come in for tours, everybody buys a gallon of milk. So think of 15 gallons of milk per minute coming out of this pump. Now, do you think one firefighter can control that? Absolutely not. If you look up top, it's kind of hard to see, but there's a deck gun. It's that kind of silver thing. That flows 1,000 gallons per minute. So this truck, with just using that nozzle up top there, can flow 1,000 gallons per minute. As I said earlier, each one of these hose lines puts out about 135, maybe 150 gallons per minute. So if I needed 500 gallons per minute, I could either use that to put the fire out, or I could use 2 of these hose lines. That's, as the incident commander, as the guy in charge of that fire, that's what I think about. But I need 2 guys for each one of these hose lines. So I need 4 guys to put out 500 gallons per minute. So that's where the math comes in. The other part where math comes in, believe it or not, anytime you have a liquid flowing through a pipe, whether it be the water pipe in your house or a fire hose, there's something called friction loss. So while this may put out 135 gallons per minute, I have to figure out what my pump pressure is to get that 135 gallons per minute out of the nozzle. This is all stuff we train on, and you don't see that, when we're out on the street. This is what we train on at the firehouse. When we go to live burn, we train on that. When you guys went to live burn and we did the smoke in the smokehouse, the pump operator outside is working on the pump, and he's getting his training in trying to figure out what nozzle pressures and how much water he has to put out of the pump to make these things work. Right? In order for these nozzles to work properly, they need at least 100 psi at the nozzle. And then you go from there figuring out how much pump pressure you need and all that kind of stuff. So it's not simply pulling valves and all that other kind of stuff. There is a little bit of science to it. We have to know what we're talking about. Just like the other side, we have a 5-inch intake, so this is where the water supply line would come in. This is a discharge, this is a discharge, this is a smaller intake. Sometimes we don't use 5-inch hose, we use smaller hose, maybe that 3-inch hose on the back we might use on something smaller, okay? all kinds of valves. One of the unique things about operating a pump, because there is so much water pressure coming in, you just can't open and close valves quickly. You create a problem. So if you look here, this is actually an electronic valve. It's controlled electronically by the battery, and we push the button. This is on a large diameter discharge as we have on the other side. So there's a lot of safety features built into this pump, and it's not just thrown together haphazardly. There's a lot of thought that goes into it. I talked a little bit earlier about foam. There's a foam tank inside. If you notice here, it says foam. Foam, these are our foam lines. Why do we need foam? Well, we go to a car fire and a gasoline tank on the car ruptured and now is on fire. We have to use foam. Because if you just put water on the gasoline fire, it's going to expand because gasoline floats on water. So we use foam. Foam creates a blanket, takes away the oxygen, hopefully the fire goes out. So there's a lot that goes on. All right? Our pump operators are all trained in how to use this. It's been a long time since I've operated a pump. I've been an officer for about 15 or 16 years. So not that I can't do it, but I'm not as good as the firefighters. That's what they do every day. You'll see them out front when they pull the trucks out in the morning. They go over the pump, make sure it's operational. So there's a lot that goes on with this. This is the this is the meat and potatoes of a pumper, is the pump. And that's what makes the whole thing work. And this is, this was custom designed again by the committee for our use, for the ease of our use. So, and the guys did a fantastic job. And I like the colors because, I like to keep things simple. Colors help out a lot. Now, we talked about this truck, okay? The truck doesn't drive itself. The hoses don't stretch by themselves. The pump doesn't get used by itself. We have to have a place for the guys to sit. So this is where these are the jump seats, okay? This is a 5-person cab, 2 in the front and 3 in the back. Now on a good day, we're running with 3 guys on this truck. But inside, it's kind of hard to see, but we have SCBA up inside the seats, okay? And we have some compartments with medical equipment and gas meters and things like that inside. But as you can see, it's a walkthrough. Our older trucks, the engine used to be right in the middle. And that created a problem, especially when we went to the highway. Because if we got out on the wrong side of the truck, we're either getting out in traffic or we're up against the guardrail. So that's why it's nice to have a walk-through cabin. If we go to a house fire, depending on which side of the street it is, the guy can get off on that right side, on the correct side. So it's good to have that walk-through. So, if you remember earlier, I talked that this is a custom-built piece of equipment for Summit. And the manufacturer is nice enough to put this sign on here. I don't know if you can get it with the camera, but it says custom built for City of Summit Fire Department. That's something the citizens of Summit should take pride in. The guys that designed this truck did a fantastic job. I would be remiss if I didn't say the council supported us 100%. The Public Safety Committee, they were all behind us. They know that we need the equipment to do the job. So they supported this 100%, gave us the funds. Now, when we talk about funds, unfortunately, when it does say custom, we do talk about expense, but fire apparatus is expensive no matter how you buy it. There's a lot of thought that goes into this. NFPA requirements, something as simple as this banding, there has to be so many square feet of this reflective tape for safety. We have to have intersection lights for safety. These are all requirements of the NFPA that we follow. So that's important to keep in mind. This truck cost about $599,000. And you're probably going, wow, that's a lot of money. And yeah, I agree with you. I live in Summit. It is a lot of money. The truck that this new one's replacing lasted us 27 years. So if you take that 27 years and take the $599 divided by 27, it's expensive, but it lasts a long time. The fire department has an apparatus replacement schedule. So it's not, we don't walk into the council chambers and say, hey, we need a new truck and we need it tomorrow. We actually have a plan, so everybody's prepared for it. We know what we're looking for. So the chief and the deputy chief were very much involved in the design of this truck. To the aspect is, to their credit, they let the committee do their thing. Obviously they oversaw it, but they let the committee do their thing, made sure they stayed on budget, got the proper equipment. So everybody was involved, from the chief, the deputy chief, the council, the public safety committee, the firefighters. we all made sure that we stay within budget and we followed that replacement plan. So the fire department has a great plan when it comes to replacing our apparatus. Now, of course, this truck doesn't do anybody any good if it doesn't get there. So this is where the driver operates. All kinds of gauges, the pump operations up there, obviously speedometer, tachometer, temperature gauges, oil gauge, all that kind of stuff. If you look up top, you'll see some red lights that puts the emergency lights on. So there's all kinds of gauges, and the guys, we just had our training in this within the last week on how to use the truck. So the guys are up to speed to that. One of the unique things about current fire apparatus is they have to be environmentally friendly. And that's one of the NFPA and EPA requirements. So the newer apparatus actually have to burn hotter to burn off the diesel exhaust. Now, unfortunately, fire apparatus usually do very short runs. They go from the firehouse to a call and then back. So we actually have to regenerate the engine, they call it. And what happens is there's a light that pops up on the dashboard. It tells us it's time to regen. So we pull the truck out, we run the truck up to high idle, and it regens the exhaust system so that it works again, burns off the diesel soot. You're probably saying, well, what happens if you're on a call and that light comes on? Well, we have the ability to override it. It will not affect the engine or anything like that if we don't regen it right away. But at some point during the day, we have to regen it. So it's not going to take the truck out of service. But what I'm trying to point to here is that this truck is very environmentally friendly. Its carbon footprint is getting, these trucks are getting, their carbon footprint's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. All right. Somebody asked me what the gallon per mile is with the, I have no idea what it is. And they really don't, I don't know if they really worry about it, because what happens is this truck might drive from here to, say, Merck, and it might sit there for an hour idling. Well, that doesn't really do much good for the gallons per mile. But they try to make it as environmentally friendly as they can by putting those kind of regen systems into the truck. All right? That's basically our new Engine 2. I gave you a quick overview. I apologize. I'm sure I left something out. But you're welcome to stop by the firehouse anytime you want and take a look at it. We're here 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So don't be afraid to stop by. We're always welcome you to come in. If you have any questions, please stop by. You can call me if you want to at the firehouse, 908-277-1033. We'll answer any questions you have. Please stop by, and when you see us out in the street, say hi, and don't forget to take care of those fire hydrants. So thanks for viewing, and see you next episode.